The next few poses will be done in a standing position. Please move slowly and at your own pace. Keep the sturdy chair nearby for balance if needed. If you find that I'm talking faster than you are moving, please take your time and do fewer repetitions. Take a nice deep inhale and exhale. Place the feet about hips-width apart and grounded on the floor. Lift the toes and spread them nice and wide, and feel the navel pull gently in towards the spine. Push the toes into the floor and lean forward just a little bit. Feel the muscles that keep you steady. Lean back just a little bit and feel the toes come up. Feel the muscles that keep you steady in this position. Now push all four corners of the feet into the floor. Notice the steadiness of mountain pose. Notice how the steadiness of mountain pose feels. On the next inhale, roll the shoulders towards the ears, back and down so the shoulders are slightly open. Let the palms rest open to the side. Inhale and let the arms rise with the palms facing up. Exhale, bend at the elbows and allow the hands to come down the center line. Sink into the knees just a little. Repeat this again. Inhale, lift the arms with the palms facing up. Allow the hands and face to be relaxed. Continue with this movement at your own pace. Breathe as you move and try to coordinate the breath with the movement. On the next breath, lift the arms back over the head. Fingertips point in, palms face up. Imagine that you have candles in the palms of your hands and you do not want to spill them. Turn the fingertips so they face behind you. The palms remain up. Turn the fingertips to the side and then to the front like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again, towards one another, and then forwards like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again. Let's do this rotation one more time. After the second rotation, allow the hands to cascade down by the side and let them rest. Pause for one slow inhale and exhale. One more breath. Inhale, exhale. This next exercise is excellent for strengthening the spine and gently stretching the muscles of the back, front, and sides. Attempt to make the movement easeful and gentle. We will do these movements with various arm positions. The first arm position is the easiest. Please be sure to stay with the one that feels best for your body. We will demonstrate them all. Take the right hand to the waist and then the left. Roll the shoulders open. And on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale to the center. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale back to the center. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down. And on the next inhale, gently pull the navel towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin and feel a sense of lengthening through the front of the body. On the next exhale, begin to fold gently forward. It does not have to be all the way. Bend the knees slightly. Inhale and rise back to a standing position. Open the left arm to the side. Keep the elbow bent. Leave the right hand on the waist. Inhale. Exhale, lean slightly to the right, and then return back to the center. Bring the left hand down to the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. Exhale and lengthen to the left. Return to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Gently pull the navel in towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward halfway. Inhale back to standing. Open the left arm again. Inhale, and on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale and return back to the center. Place the left hand on the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale and return back to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Lengthen through the front of the body. Slightly pull the shoulder blades together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward. Knees slightly bent. Inhale and return to standing in mountain pose. Pause for a moment. Inhale and exhale. For this warrior sequence, attempt to keep the movements gentle and relaxed. If you notice that you are struggling, move the feet closer together. Lower the arms or make the movements smaller. This pose is great for strengthening the legs, respiration, and opening the shoulders. Step the left foot forward just a few feet. The back foot points in at a 45-degree angle. The front knee bends and the hips face front if possible. Inhale, open the arms and bend at the elbows. On the exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards each other. Inhale, open the arms and push the heart softly forwards. Relax the shoulders. Exhale, bring the arms together. Inhale, open the arms to where you feel comfortable. Exhale, relax the arms inwards. Inhale, open and expand. Exhale, contract. Inhale, exhale. Bring the hands back down by the side. Return to mountain pose. One breath here. Inhale, exhale. Step the right foot forward. Take a moment, there's no rush. Ground the back foot into the floor. Bend the front knee. When you are ready, open the arms. Inhale. Exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards one another. Inhale, open the arms. This is a relaxed opening in the chest. Exhale, bring the hands and arms towards one another. Inhale, repeat again, creating spaciousness with a full inhale. Exhale, contract and relax the arms slightly. 2 more times at your own pace. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. Let the hands rest down by the side and return back to mountain pose. Pause here for a few breaths.
Welcome back to the 44th online episode of Peacetime, hosted every Sunday morning by Peace Point with myself, Phra Nicholas Thanissaro, live streaming from our meditation center in London, UK. Last time you saw me, we looked at blessing number 2, associating with the wise. With the Dhamma talk today, we will continue our series on enlightened living with blessing number 3, expressing respect to those worthy of respect. So today's session will run to about an hour and 10 minutes with a 25-minute talk on the effect a role model has on the formation of one's discretion and the meaning of expressing respect. Then 20 minutes of meditation and 25 minutes explaining how to express respect and the damage brought by the lack of respect in society. As seen in previous blessings, the brightness of a person's future relies on their ability to judge the differences between good and bad habits. If their judgment is faulty, it is hard to make a success of one's life. Even though people may look superficially similar, their standards of judgment can be very different. Healthy people are born with 2 hands and 10 fingers, but some people use their hands to help people, while others ball their hands into fists and to threaten other people. In this blessing, we look at the third of 3 major influences on our development of sound discretion, having the right sort of role model in our hearts. It is similar to associating with the wise, but could be considered as admiration from a distance. This blessing doesn't require that we model ourselves on anyone or anything at all. But if we are going to model ourselves on someone or something, we need to make sure the model is worthy of respect if we want to develop sound discretion. Such terms as homage, respect, and fealty might sound rather like anachronisms, but if we update the context to something like, who's your hero? Or which celebrity do you hit the like button for? Or whose post do you retweet? Then you'll see the influence of others hasn't gone out of date. As children, the horizons of our experience do not extend far beyond the walls of our house. Our parents or guardians might represent all that we want to achieve in our lives. We might even try to play at being grown up like our parents to imitate them. If we are exposed to a good parental example, our idea of ethical norms will develop quite wholesomely from an early age. However, when parents break promises to their children often or inflict angry punishments, this will come to be what the child perceives to be the standard of justice in life. During one's teen years, when one's horizons extend beyond the home, the influence of constructive or destructive role models becomes more unpredictable. The effects of role models on teenagers is more than just the influence of good or bad friends, as studied in the previous 2 blessings. If you take a look at some of the examples celebrities set for the youth of today, you can imagine some of the problems facing our impressionable youngsters. If you unquestioningly accept the examples of Vincent van Gogh, Kurt Cobain, Marilyn Monroe, Janis Joplin, Dylan Thomas, Jimi Hendrix, Elvis Presley, Jim Morrison, Keith Moon, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Ernest Hemingway, or Brian Jones, all of whom took their own lives at an early age, you might come to the conclusion that truly creative people are too beautiful for this world. You might come to the conclusion that creative writers drink because of the pressure of fame, or that suicide is a good way to ensure fame. Such conclusions will blinker us to the insecure, grotesquely boring reality of these people's lives. You'll end up rationalizing away the brutal and banal nature of their addictions. When we forgive our heroes their demons, and we'll end up being excessively lenient on ourselves as well. It gives us an instant excuse to be irresponsible and indecent. We can say that we are too beautiful for this world too. We can act like drugged children, crash our lives and drop out. The truth about someone like Vincent van Gogh is that when he painted, he was beautiful, but in other matters, he was not. He was always encouraging his emotions to work their dark magic. It's true that he ought to be admired while he had a paintbrush in his hand, but to admire his sorrowful life and to make a legend out of it is to get the wrong end of the stick. The problem for us as beginners on the initial steps of the blessings of life, with only a germ of an idea of what is going to be good for our spiritual development, is to calibrate our own sense of normal habits. If you can choose a reliable role model for yourself, you will make it easier to acquire positive worldview, or what is known technically in Buddhism as right view. So just as a sidebar, because I haven't seen it explained anywhere else in the 38 blessings, I should explain that right view in Buddhism specifically means valuing generosity and welfare work, honoring those worthy of respect, acknowledging the karmic retribution of action, the reality of this world and the next, repaying a debt of gratitude to one's parents, acknowledging the existence of spontaneously arising beings, and acknowledging that enlightenment can be achieved by those who practice well. Furthermore, if you have a role model with right view, basically it will help you to develop right view as well. It will prevent you from becoming self-centered or complacent about your own level of virtue, and it will facilitate your enthusiasm for spiritual transformation. If you ask yourself what having a hero in your heart does for you, you find that you allocate more bandwidth to them in your heart and your mind. We put their picture on the wall. When we speak about them, we only speak praise of them. We take every opportunity to learn their opinions and share them. Given the opportunity, we would try to meet with them and imitate what they do in their lives. Some people even go to the lengths of dressing like their heroes. All these are outward aspects of a quality we call respect. Behaviors we could refer to as paying respect or expressing respect. Respect, when unexpressed, means the attitude of looking for the positive aspects of a person or an object, and the effort to instill oneself with those same virtues. Such respect, in the context of the blessings of life, has the aim of furthering one's spiritual development. It should not have any ulterior motive. It wouldn't mean flattering your boss so that you can cut corners at work more easily. Because such an expression of respect betrays deceitful and exploitative intentions not befitting spiritual transformation, at least in a positive direction. True respect arises in response to someone's good points. The imitation of respect comes in the form of flattery before calling in a favor, love that turns out to be nothing more than lust. The official definition of expressing respect would mean any polite and intentional action towards someone or something, both in their presence or behind their back, that demonstrates that you are really recollecting the virtues of that person or thing. It demonstrates the intention to develop accurate discretion in that person's footsteps and to overcome one's blind spots to the good and valuable things in the world around us. There's an inbuilt weakness we all seem to have that makes it particularly easy to forget things that are good for us. We all know that meditation is good for us, so having been reminded of this, on the first day we sit for meditation for exactly half an hour, no more, no less. On the second day you sit for only 15 minutes because we consider this better than nothing. On the third day, we reflect that sitting quietly is about the same as meditating, so 5 minutes of actual meditation ought to be enough. On the fourth day, because the weather is so cold, It would be understandable to take the day off. After all, thousands of other people don't meditate, and they seem to be none the worse for it. On the fifth day, we can't even remember how we managed to meditate for an entire 30 minutes, because the effort to do good deeds is so easy to forget. Expressions of respect serve as a way to rekindle the inspiration. For all the devious behaviors in our past, I think you'll agree that it takes no effort for all those memories to come flooding back in full technicolor. Expressing respect helps us establish a firm connection with the virtues of an exemplar. Expressions of respect are like a placeholder that allows us to return to a later time when a real appreciation of the virtues of that person start to take root. Even though our expression of respect may not do full justice to the depth of that other person's virtue, it will allow our appreciation of that virtue gradually to take root. Parents taking their 5-year-olds to the temple make sure they pay respect to the Buddha statues. The child cannot see beyond the clay or the brass of the statue and may wonder what all the fuss is about. They're too young to appreciate what is so outstanding about the Buddha. If the child is dragged along to the home of an aging relative and told to speak politely to them, they're only polite to the old folks because their parents insist. At school, the child is told to treat their teachers respectfully. The child is too young to really tell whether the teacher will make a difference to their future or not. However, sometime in the future, when they are used to behaving respectfully, the thought will eventually occur to them to look for the reason they are paying respect, whether it be to the Buddha, to the elders, or to the teachers. Sometimes people confuse respect with expressing respect. However, if you express respect when your attitude is wrong, it will do nothing for your spiritual progress. Some people pay respect out of obsequiousness, which in modern-day parlance means sucking up to someone. Such people only show respect in order to manipulate the person they pay respect to, so they can ask favors from that person, often for a thing which they are not entirely honest or noble about. Secondly, there is respect expressed because of peer pressure. Some people pay respect just because everyone else does. This happens a lot with so-called celebrities. The attitude of respect may not actually pass through their mind. All they know is that they are forwarding posts, putting up the poster, or buying the merch. Therefore, all they get for their efforts is a lot of paraphernalia in their life. The third approach is respect expressed in search of wisdom. This refers to those who have an attitude of respect, who also express their respect with the determination to practice themselves all the virtues exemplified by the object of their respect. All the varieties of genuine respect can be summarized under just 2 headings. The first is homage through gifts, or amissa puja, which refers to all material forms of paying homage, whether it be putting your palms together in a gesture of respect, bowing, or even words of praise about a person. The second is homage through practice, or patipati puja. This means paying homage by doing as one is taught. For example, paying respect to the Buddha by doing as he taught. As is usually the case in Buddhist lists, the item that comes at the end of the list is generally the most important or the superior one. This is why when we pay respect to the Buddha, we should emphasize homage through practice, while homage through gifts should play only a supporting role. By contrast, when paying respect to exemplars who are still concerned with worldly matters, in other words, rulers, parents, teachers, elders, and betters, homage through gifts might have more of a role, with homage through practice playing only a supporting role. To give an example, if we are to meet up with our teacher, and when we meet up with them, all we have for them is the words, "I have put into practice everything you've taught me," it might not have the same effect as bringing an apple for them, which would be considered a skillful way of expressing respect, or a bottle of wine from abroad, which would be considered an unskillful way of expressing respect. A person worthy of respect in its simplest terms would be the wise one, as we defined them in the previous blessing. The wise one in this context is someone who, by their habits or lifestyle, is beyond what we could appropriately associate with as peers on an equal level. Examples of such people might include the Buddha, monks, virtuous monarchs, parents, teachers, or employers. Especially in the Western world, with statues of the Buddha as no more than a manufactured product, sold alongside garden gnomes and home decorations in supermarkets and garden centers, it is easy to disconnect the historical figure from the expressions of respect. The sort of virtues exemplified by the Buddha are normally summarized as the 3 aspects of wisdom, compassion, and purity. The Buddha exemplifies wisdom so great that he could single-handedly attain enlightenment. He exemplifies compassion so great that he sacrificed the remainder of his life after enlightenment to teach the way for others to reach transcendental attainments. He exemplified purity through the excellent practice of self-discipline, primarily through keeping the monastic precepts, and for these 3 reasons, Buddhists hold the Buddha in the highest of respect. In our meditation centers, mostly we are invited to bow to the Buddha at the beginning and the end of the sessions. If we bow without any aspect of respect in our mind, it will benefit us no more than a yoga exercise to increase suppleness. It would be much more effective in our spiritual transformation if we reflect on the 3 virtues of the Buddha as we are bowing. When we bow the first time, we should reflect on the supreme wisdom of the Buddha, which allowed him to see the existence of suffering, know the origin and the cessation of suffering, and find a path to the cessation of suffering. Wisdom arising from the Buddha, having meditated until his mind had become sufficiently clear and bright to eradicate all defilements from the mind. Following his example, we should also meditate determinedly until we can achieve the same wisdom as that of the Buddha. When we bow the second time, we should reflect on the supreme compassion of the Buddha, that instead of just keeping his teaching to himself, he spent all his life teaching Dhamma to others so that they could become enlightened in his footsteps. Following his example, we should always try to find ways of being generous as our way of expressing our compassion to others. When we bow the third time, we should reflect on the supreme purity of the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha, which he cultivated through his practice of self-discipline. Following his example, we should become more resolute in upholding the purity of our own precepts. This will bring us more benefit from all the Buddha statues in all the garden centers of the world. Monastic community are also singled out for expressions of respect, whether or not they have reached transcendental attainments. Although some monks may not yet have purged themselves of all defilements, owing to the dedication of their chosen way of life, it would be inappropriate for lay people to treat them as equals. Lay people should always treat monks and clergy in general with respect. At all times, especially those who exemplify, teach, and discern virtue for us by fulfilling the following 6 duties. Firstly, they caution others against unwholesome behavior. Secondly, they encourage others to establish themselves in virtue, although these 2 responsibilities are also the domain of parents and teachers. Thirdly, they minister to others in kindness, which means extending loving kindness for the happiness of their congregation without exception. They might also visit their supporters together with their monastic fellows in order to give those congregation members the chance to hear Dhamma teachings and have the opportunity to practice generosity. Fourthly, they teach us new or beneficial things, not just repeat the same teaching each time. One of the most important functions of the clergy is to encourage the study of spiritual teachings amongst their congregation. Monks should have a large repertoire of teachings to give to their congregation, teaching without repeating themselves, so that the congregation can have a broad knowledge of the Dharma, reinforcing their right view and power of conscience. Fifth, they should clarify things which the congregation already know. If monks are talking on subjects the congregation are already familiar with, then they should enlarge on the subject in more detail than before, giving additional examples of how these teachings can be applied for problem solving in everyday life. Lastly, the monks or clergy need to show others the way toward heaven. This monastic duty particularly is special in the system of the 6 directions because apart from the clergy, there is no other social sector dedicated to this form of welfare. A good afterlife destination can also be expected by those who have lived their lives in accordance with the precepts. These 6 duties are ideally fulfilled by clergy and spiritual mentors of all religions, whether they be monks, priests, pastors, or ministers. Accordingly, they should be held in high respect because they set the ethical standards for the society to follow. Ultimately, clergy are responsible for training the laity to become wise ones or virtuous people. Monks who are able to practice all 6 of these duties to their completion are of inestimable value to society and the world, and therefore they deserve respect. Next on the list of people deserving respect are monarchs, or maybe rulers, and those in governance generally, all of whom presumably make great personal sacrifices for the benefit of the public. Such people can qualify as worthy of respect if they exemplify the so-called 10-fold virtues of a monarch, something which we will look at in more detail in blessing number 16. Also deserving of respect are any members of society whose duties involve a lot of personal sacrifices, such as the majority of parents who, through the nature of their duties, are likely to be deserving of respect. Teachers and spiritual mentors should be worthy of respect too, as long as they are established in the sorts of right view I elaborated on earlier, and they're also likely to be deserving of respect. Teachers particularly deserve their students' respect if they ideally fulfill 2 duties in reference to their subject matter. Firstly, to explain the subject in theory, and secondly, to exemplify their subject, especially the ethical application of the subject they teach. If they are hypocritical, making frequent use of the apologetic "do as I say, but not what I do," it is likely that they are in teaching for the money and not out of love. If you think back to your own school days and your own favorite teacher, you will recognize that the teachers you liked tend to be the ones that matched up with the subjects that you were good at. Buddhism would say that you didn't just like subjects because you were good at them, but because you became good at the subjects because you liked and had respect for the teacher teaching the subject. Finally, on our list of those potentially worthy of respect, bosses and employers generally can also be worthy of respect if they set the tone of industriousness and ethical wealth generation for their employees. As we spend so much of our lives in the workplace, having such an employer will contribute significantly to keeping us on the straight and narrow until such a time that we have reliable discretion for ourselves. So, in summary, we have identified the sorts of people worthy of respect, namely the Buddha, the monastic community, rulers, parents, teachers, and employers. You may be surprised to learn that in addition to worthy people, there are also certain classes of inanimate objects that are worthy of respect, namely pagodas and sources of spiritual teachings and of learning in general. There are 4 types of monuments that qualify as pagodas worthy of respect in Buddhism, and perhaps I should explain that pagodas are also known as chetiyas, stupas, and dagobas, depending on the Buddhist country you're talking about. So there are 4 categories of pagoda: relic pagodas, pagodas at the Buddhist holy sites, pagodas filled with scriptures, and pagodas filled with Buddha statues. The first of these, a relic pagoda, is a pagoda containing the relics of a Buddha, a Vajrayana Buddha, an Arahant, or a universal monarch. After the cremation of a truly virtuous person, there are pearl-like relics left behind in the ashes. In keeping with the teachings of the Buddha, these are collected by the faithful and are paid homage to by Buddhists, not only with candles and incense, but by enshrining them in small pagodas. The second type of pagoda, known as the Paripoka Chettiya, includes those located at the 4 holy sites connected with the life of the Buddha, the places where he was born, enlightened, where he gave his first sermon, and where he passed away into parinirvana. Buddha advocated that the faithful coming after him should visit holy sites if they had the chance, because it would awaken in them the sense of urgency to get down to practice. It would remind them that the Buddha was just a man. Many people who have been on pilgrimage to visit these holy sites have discovered that their inspiration to practice has been strengthened by the feeling of going back to a time when they were in the presence of the Buddha himself. The third sort of pagoda is known as the Dhamma Chettiya, which is a pagoda that contains Dhamma teachings such as books of the Tipitaka or other scriptures. Lastly, an Udesika Chettiya is a pagoda that contains Buddha statues or statues of enlightened disciples. The way to be respectful of a pagoda is to circumambulate clockwise with your hands in a gesture of prayer and behave mindfully and with decorum in the pagoda area. Depending on the country, it is also customary out of respect to remove one's shoes in the pagoda compound, and in some places even to avoid standing on the shadow of the pagoda. While on the subject, I should mention that the requisites belonging to monks, whether it be robes or bowls, are often treated with respect, even though they are inanimate objects. Another sort of inanimate object worthy of respect are the sources of spiritual teachings, which may include the teachings of the Buddha, of members of the monastic community, of kings, of parents and elders, of teachers and masters, of our boss, or the teachings of the wise more generally, with whom we associate. Teachings of all 6 categories of people worthy of respect should not be mocked or taken in vain, in case such disrespect undermines people's inspiration to put them into practice. Once the appreciation of the sources is lost, all that remains is ignorance and false view. The same principle goes for photographs or pictures of the Buddha, of monks, the king, of our parents or teachers. Such photographs should not be left lying around or used without reverence. They should be covered or turned to the wall if not in use. Similarly, chanting books shouldn't be left lying about either, or folded up and shoved in the back pocket of one's trousers. They shouldn't be handled with dirty hands or put down on a dusty surface, and other objects should not be placed on top of them. They shouldn't be crumpled, have pages torn out, or be marked with a pen. Perhaps to make the category of things and people worthy of respect clearer, I should perhaps point out some of the things which are not worthy of respect. Things or people which, by prizing them or publicizing them, or even forwarding them on social media, will bring damage to the value system. For this reason, we need to be careful not to pay respect to things not worthy of respect. In brief, there are 4 categories of things we should avoid idolizing or paying respect to. In terms of people, sort of people who would be no-platformed would include those in the category of fools, or those espousing or inciting others with foolish ideas. For such people, we should avoid supporting them, praising them, or publicizing them, no matter how important they may claim to be. By the same token, we should avoid giving attention or publicity to objects that are not worthy of respect, whether it be posters, statues, books, or airtime for fools. Even when the objects don't direct attention to a particular foolish personality, but are in the category of roads to ruin, such as alcohol or gambling, we shouldn't even use these sort of things to decorate our homes. Finally, even the sort of curios which promote superstition and magic, let's say Ouija boards rather than Harry Potter books, should not be kept in our home, publicized or spread about. So, before we have our meditation today, we have time for a quick story to illustrate the power of paying respect to those deserving of respect for our destiny. And this time it comes from the commentary to illustrate Dhammapada, verse 68, concerning good deeds causing no regret at a later time. In the time of the Buddha, in King Bimbisara's palace, there was a group of courtiers specialized in flower arranging. The head of the flower arrangers was called Sumana, and his duty was to arrange flowers to decorate the palace, to decorate the throne, and even decorate the king's bedchamber, to give all these places a delightful fragrance. Sumana fulfilled his duty to the king's satisfaction every day, year in, year out, without fail. One day, in the season where flowers were scarce, Sumana searched every part of the city, and wherever there were flowers to be bought, he would buy them all. In fact, every last flower in the city was requisitions for the decoration of the palace. Even though Sumana had exclusive rights to all the flowers in the city, because the dry season had caused a drought, he could hardly find any flower to buy at any price. That day, the flowers were so scarce that in the whole city, all Sumana could obtain were 8 handfuls of jasmine flowers. Really, this wasn't enough to decorate the palace, but it was better than nothing. That day, as Sumana was bringing the 8 handfuls of jasmine flowers to the palace, he met the Buddha along the way. The Buddha was on alms round. Sumana regularly attended the Buddha's sermons, but he had never really had the chance to make a decent offering to the Buddha, partly because of his poverty and partly because his faith was not very profound. That day, as Sumana saw the Buddha, he felt that the Buddha looked particularly resplendent and worthy of faith. The deportment of the Buddha seemed so perfect in every respect that he felt it was only fitting to bow down before him. Sumana's next thought was that all he had to give was 8 handfuls of flowers. If he used them to honor the king, all the king could give him was wealth to see him through the present lifetime. However, that day, by paying respect to the Buddha, it would be his chance at positive karma that would bring him benefits not just in this lifetime, but for many lifetimes to come. Even if the king were to chop off his head in a punishment, it wouldn't affect the good results of these deeds. Sumana raised the flowers to his forehead and, having made his resolution, sprinkled the jasmine flowers in the path ahead of the Buddha, with the intention that the Buddha would walk upon his fragrant offering. The Buddha saw the strength of Sumana's faith to the degree that he was prepared to lay down his life in order to make this offering. Accordingly, the Buddha created a miracle in order to bring Sumana real joy, to allow him to gain the full merit of his generous deed and lead him to attain enlightenment in the future. Therefore, as soon as the flowers were released from Sumana's hand, the Buddha caused the flowers to float up as a cloud of flowers above where the Buddha stood, and then follow the Buddha wherever he went. At both sides of the Buddha's path, all the householders came out of their houses to see the miraculous sight, and were inspired by the sight of the flowers, which seemed to have a life of their own in honor of the Buddha. Through Sumana's faith, together with the power of the perfections of the Buddha, the jasmine flowers sent their scent throughout the whole of the city. The scent followed the Buddha wherever he went, and this attracted everyone out of their houses to see the sight of the Buddha. Many of the householders had seen the Buddha before, but they had never been particularly inspired by him. But that day, the sight of the Buddha was so impressive that many of the householders were inspired to faith. Those who were only slightly faithful put their hands together in a gesture of prayer. Those who were more inspired raised their hands in a gesture of prayer and offered words of praise to the Buddha. Those whose faith was even greater prepared food to offer into the Buddha's bowl and followed him around to see what would happen to the flowers. The Buddha's alms round took him all over the city and eventually brought him to the front of the palace. The king heard the news and came to give alms himself, inviting the Buddha to take breakfast in the palace. As the Buddha was taking his meal and while he gave his blessing, when he returned to Jetavana temple, the flowers remained above him. But When he entered the temple, the flowers fell in a heap at the temple gate, which only added to the faith of the followers. Even Sumana thought, if the king is to execute me now for failing my duty, it has certainly been worth it. By contrast, Sumana's wife worried about how her husband could have been so incredibly stupid. If he had given the flowers to the king, at least he would have got paid. But giving the flowers to the Buddha, he got nothing in return but faith. And how is that going to feed his hungry children? What if the king got angry about the lack of flowers and decided to execute her husband and his wife and children as well? They'd all suffer because of his stupidity. And if the king seized Sumana's belongings, he would just take Sumana's possessions. He would take the whole possessions of everyone in the family. She didn't want this to happen, so she went straight to the king and disowned her husband. She demanded divorce on the spot. Instead of feeling angry with Sumana, the king felt intrigued and inspired by the flower man's example and decided to give Sumana a prize for his courage. In the end, Sumana received his prize alone because his ex had already gone into hiding. When the story reached the ears of the Buddha, the Venerable Ananda, who's the Buddha's secretary, asked the Buddha about the fruits of Sumana's faith on that occasion. And the Buddha replied that with the strength of faith, that someone is prepared to lay down their life, such as that of Sumana, faith is very deep-rooted in that person's mind. Sumana's mind had been very radiant, and accordingly, he predicted that for at least 100,000 aeons henceforth, however many rebirths Sumana took, he would be born in only the human and the heaven realms. After the appropriate length of time, Sumana would become enlightened as a Pacceka Buddha. This is why the resulting brightness and clarity of mind will stay with a person expressing homage to the Buddha through the course of many lifetimes. But now, with a view to cultivating the clarity and purity of discretion within ourselves, let's take a break halfway for some meditation. So at this time, we settle ourselves down for 20 minutes of meditation. If you would like to find a comfortable sitting position for yourself now as you listen to my guidance. So if you'd like to settle yourself now for some meditation, and make sure you're sitting comfortably enough to be able to sit for a long, long time without having to move around too much. Close your eyes gently, as softly as you can. And as usual, we take a few good deep breaths to ourselves, breathing intentionally deep, so that we can relax the mind as well as the body. We breathe not only for relaxation, but also to bring the awareness gently back to the body, allowing our breath to become softer as we relax. And the position we adopt should maintain our back fairly straight and our neck upright. Sometimes we assume our body is relaxed, but when we come to check, we find there are still places where tension lingers on. So we take a few moments to examine every single part of our body to make sure there's no remaining tension that might encroach on our little bubble of relaxation. We relax our shoulders. From there we continue to relax our arms, down to our hands and our fingers. Relaxing our torso and legs, down to our feet and our toes. And we'll find that if we can get the body to loosen up, then the mind will loosen up as well. There are many signs that we need meditation in our lives, and most of them are to do with the calming of the mind. It may be because you're anxious about the past, or because you worry about the future. You may feel guilty when you're not busy, or you may still be trying to multitask in spite of all the mistakes you're making. You may worry about good experiences coming to an end. Or you might simply want to live life more mindfully. But whatever your motivation from here on in, we're going to let go of anything that's still on our mind by not thinking of those things. So you can imagine that your mind is slowing down, becoming softer, even if it's not yet quite still. So with the consciousness inside the body, we put aside any worries or concerns in the mind and conjure up a sense of happiness and joy inside the mind, like tiny particles, completely filling our body and mind. From there we imagine that inside our body is just an empty space. And within the space of our body, in our mind's eye at least, we conjure up a picture of the sun shining, or perhaps the full moon, a star, a crystal ball, whatever comes easiest to you. In order to come to the center, we just reach with our awareness, nuzzling and nestling our awareness up against the feeling inside the body center. So we allow our awareness to gravitate down towards the abdomen, not rushing, but reaching with the awareness towards the center of the body, which is like a point of reference or an anchor for the mind. That from now on will help prevent the mind from wandering. The bright object at our center may be shining bright like a spotlight or a bright sphere, or it may be vaguer than that. In the beginning, the imaginary inner object may be more of a feeling than something we see. We may feel the presence of that bright ball of light rather than seeing it. But whatever form the object takes, we stay with it, graciously accepting any form it may take. In the meantime, our awareness continues to nuzzle and nestle up against the center of the bright sun inside us. And we observe as if actually inside the sun rather than looking down at it. We accept it as it is, while bearing in mind the success factors that tell us the best way to observe in meditation, namely the 4 C's, concentration and comfort imbalance, consistency, and checking afterwards to confirm that we are on the right track. We remain with this bright inner light we have uncritically. For now, during the meditation itself, we suspend judgment, allowing the awareness to remain unperturbed at the center. The longer the mind has an unbroken connection with the center, the more we can connect with the profound sense of peace that comes from inside. If our mind slips outside the bright center, then that sense of peace will diminish. In the meantime, we keep bringing our awareness back whenever it's distracted, in order to merge with the bright light. If the mind wanders, we check in again with where the mind is. Bring it back to the center point, or at the center of the bright light if necessary. In the meantime, we keep the mind neutral and free of questions or commentary. If any new experience arises, we notice it and no more. We accept the experience as it is. We maintain an observant mind that just accepts what the experience is. There's no need to find an explanation for everything. We just observe and accept. And if we should have thoughts in the mind, we do our best to ignore them, or at least not to elaborate on them. Unless you're one of those people who has so many thoughts that it's impossible to avoid getting entangled in them. In which case you may need to make use of the traditional mantra, hearing the sound of the words Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, repeated over and over again in the mind, as if the actual source of the sound is down there at the center of your body, along with the inner object. So, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, lightly, gently, and continuously, and with a special lightness of touch, maintaining our inner object, whether it's something we see or something we feel. Always at the center of whatever is there. Even if it's darkness, we can be at the center of it. But the important thing is the lightness of touch. Continue to maintain our attention on track in the center of the body,
each to our own meditation for a few more moments in silence until we come to the appropriate time. Don't forget, if the mind wanders off onto other things, each time you realize, simply bring your attention back again to the center of the body as before. And in the meantime, we continue to keep the mind in stillness at the center. And as the peace energy keeps flowing in, we begin to notice a feeling as if we are becoming lighter. Feeling light is an indicator that peace energy is continuing to accumulate in the mind. Because energy, unlike matter, has no weight. If we have a lot of peace energy, our bodies will naturally feel less solid. Little by little, even without intending it, we feel as if we're becoming lighter. This energy lightens up our sense of being, leaving us with a feeling of weightlessness and transparency that spreads throughout our body and connects even beyond the limits of our body. And we will feel its expansion. In spite of the novelty of the experience, we maintain a mind free of questions or commentary. We don't encourage a skittish mind because a skittish mind is unable to connect with the peace energy. Meanwhile, we remain at the soft nucleus of the inner experience for a few more moments in silence. Little by little, we continue to connect with a positive feeling inside ourselves as the mind slows down, gradually slowing down to touch the center space. Little by little, it will feel natural for the mind to remain still, especially immersed in the peace energy. When the mind slows down, we can more easily touch that peace energy. Each time our mind awareness touches at the center, the energy inside us will start to flow, pervading us with that tide of peace energy. We might not yet see the energy, but the feeling will be clear. And the feeling of that peace energy continues to feed into our meditation. Of course, the subtle changes in the mind are not yet awakening or enlightenment, but yet the merit energy being gradually accumulated, paves the way toward transcendental attainment. Without this energy, we can't go any deeper in our meditation, which is why we need to remain present, allowing ourselves to be filled to the brim with this peace energy. So we bide our time as the mind gradually fills with peace energy, a process that may require our patience. In the meantime, we rest the mind emotionlessly in order to connect with the stream of energy. Peace energy on the level of the mind has several transformative effects, including cleansing the mind of greed, hatred, and delusion, raising the quality of the mind, bringing happiness, stabilizing the mind, making the mind more flexible and radiant, increasing the potential of the mind, allowing better decisions to be taken, allowing more insightful analysis, and ensuring that our thinking becomes more thorough and comprehensive, noble and deep. For all these benefits, we first need to allow the peace energy to kick in. If we try to get ahead of ourselves when we don't have enough peace energy, then we won't get too far. Eventually in our meditation, we'll end up getting stuck. So let us remain in the center for a moment, absorbing the peace energy with the mind at a standstill. And before long, the sense of lightness will gradually dawn on us. Although some might dismiss merit energy and happiness as a lower path, the importance of their groundwork should never be underestimated. Whether it be finding the center within yourself, or balancing body and mind, realizing the limitations of the physical existence, sparking joy in life, or sharing that joy with others. All of these stages of the path are, apart from being a pleasure in and of themselves, are slowly paving the way through the accumulation of peace energy towards higher transcendental attainments. The nature of these so-called lower pleasures is to lead you towards the transcendental, without losing or abandoning the sense of comfort and well-being that you've already discovered in your meditation. So even while in the midst of meditational lightness and joyousness in life, you'll start to recognize the mundane world as somehow incomplete. Something in the conventional assumptions about life and the world that is off or doesn't click for us. At root, the thing holding us back from an accurate understanding is our own egoic structure, the false identity, the fictitious self, the presence of craving and the sense of being unsatiated. That seems to be what is ruining the world. So we suffer from egotistical attachment to the self, attachment to our body, attachment to family or friends or society. Sometimes we are able to sidestep these forms of attachment, but we are still attached to a sense of craving for results in meditation, because the process we're talking about here is something that's ingrained in every single fiber of our being. But with the help of our newfound meditational calm, we can slowly pull back, open and part the veil of delusion. And in this respect, the effort to succeed in meditation and success itself are sometimes as different in nature from one another as a rainbow is different from the rain shower that caused it. To provide the missing pieces in our understanding, we have to rise above the craving to have, the craving to be, or craving not to be. In other words, the mind needs to be neutral but comfortable. If your mind is truly neutral, you'll have the feeling, if I see something in my meditation, that would be good. But if I see nothing in my meditation, that would also be good. Especially when there's a feeling of expansion in your meditation without any anticipation of what will happen next. You'll also find that any day when you feel happy all day long and there's nothing to annoy you, then you'll be able to meditate particularly well, without the temptation to try to possess enlightenment or grasp at it. We need to go beyond the craving the Buddha referred to as the second noble truth, or grasping, tanha, that never-ending thirst for more of everything, and all-consuming and self-perpetuating assumption that makes us believe we need more, which explains why everyone in the world seems to be busily consuming and eating up the whole world. A tendency to grasping has created a deluded identity in every person that makes them believe they have the right to destroy natural resources to quench their unending thirst for more. And this tendency to greed ingrained in the mind of every person will gradually be uprooted and cleansed by meditation, as our meditation dovetails gently from the warm, fluffy feeling to a change in the way we look at the world that aligns more closely with reality. There are many paradoxes surrounding the art of meditation. Some examples of this are the gateless gait and non-duality. Zen koans like that of one-hand clapping. But no less confusing for the conceptual minds, the paradox of benefiting without benefit being something we can own, which is particularly true for meditation. It's also a paradox to gain benefit when the benefit is no longer personal or egotistical. So from its roots in the feel-good merit energy, meditation starts to have a permanent transformation in the way we see the world. Even as merit energy that keeps on running through you, it allows us to see through the delusions, in the illusions of self, and have greater potential to be present. There's more inspiration and energy throughput available to us as we meditate more deeply. And there's greater merit energy that we're able to access through our body-mind structure. You no longer feel caught up by identification with dramas, with the many problems that people find themselves in. It offers us a greater scope for compassion, love, creativity, lightness, harmony and joy, because it's not stuck in a web of delusion, propped up by fear. All of these things become more accessible to us. A lot of the concerns around death will have fallen away by now, because what we have already experienced in meditation is a death of the ego in a way, which is why they call it to die before you die. And so now that that has been experienced, so much more of life is available. Because if you aren't afraid of death, then you aren't afraid to live either. It gives us the ability to coexist with paradox. Life no longer needs to make conventional sense, because once you've been through this process of transformation, everything makes sense in this new, very different way. And there's more magic in life. The magic of paradox is alive and well. because now you've seen through what everyone else has ever told you about what you are and who you are. You perceive more clearly than previously that you're overcoming the limited myopic human consciousness of the egotistical structure. And from this stage forth, beyond all these limits, you'll find yourself empowered positively, integrating body, emotions and spirit in alignment that renders life much more positive, where you can wake up every day and jump out of bed and feel happy and make your way through everyday life with a bounce in your step. So fully realizing now how merit energy can pave the way toward transcendental progress in our meditation, we focus our mind in this way for a few more moments in silence until we come to the appropriate time. Sappa Buddhanupavena, Sappa Dhammanupavena, Sappa Sanghanupavena, Sattha Soti, Bhavantu Te. So if you'd like to come gently to the end of your meditation for today, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position and gradually finish your practice. So to continue with our subject matter today on how to express respect to those worthy of respect, we can start to examine what constitutes the Buddhist definition of expressing respect. They said the respect can be expressed through the channels of body, speech, or mind. Physically, paying respect means the various polite manners demonstrated towards someone in their presence, such as standing up when they come into the room or sitting politely when in front of them. Even away from their presence, physical respect can still be shown towards those who are worthy of virtue, perhaps towards their photograph or their likeness, such as a Buddha statue or a photograph of a spiritual mentor. It's considered respectful to avoid pointing one's feet towards a respected image and even lying down to sleep to point our head towards the image instead of our feet. Homage to the channel of speech includes the speaking, chanting, or singing of praise of one worthy of homage rather than gossiping maliciously about them. Homage to the channel of the mind means recollecting the teachings of one worthy of homage to the point it becomes inspiration, perhaps by bringing to mind the good deeds that person has taught or the good character and virtues exemplified, rather than explicitly taught by that person. Both of these are homage through the channel of the mind. Some Old Testament sort of people misunderstand paying respect as meaning a burnt offering on an altar. Paying respect in this way is not incorrect, but it's not the whole story. Paying respect that is complete, in the Buddhist perspective at least, has 4 components. The first component is the physical token of respect, or sakkara. This refers to a gift which is an expression of respect. It is something which is prepared in advance to be presented during the act of paying respect.
Such a token of respect differs for different situations and categories of persons worthy of respect. For example, flowers, incense, and candles might be worthy tokens of respect for paying respect to the Buddha, monks, or teachers. A care package might be more worthy tokens of respect for, let's say, your parents. Neither of these tokens of respect would be suitable for the sort of gift you might take with you when visiting distinguished persons of social standing. Nor would they be suitable as the sort of gift you bring back with you for your friends when you've been away on holiday. Even money can sometimes be suitable as a token of respect. If a teacher has been putting in extra hours out of the kindness of their heart, giving up their time to give you tutorials at home, giving them money or at least a gift voucher would not be out of place, and in this respect would be considered a token of respect, not a payment. Another consideration for tokens of respect is that some thought or care should have been put into preparing that object in advance. To leave a bucket of cut flowers on someone's doorstep would hardly be considered an act of respect. Any token of respect should be prepared with care and finesse and be both clean and well organized. The second component is the gesture of respect, or vandana. This refers to gestures which express humility. Buddhist chanting can be counted as a vandana. Even a recollection of what one has been taught by the wise or one's teacher can be counted as vandana. The third component is the attitude of respect, or manana, since the word respect consists of the stems re, which means again, and spect, which, like the word spectacles, means to look at. In this case, the word respect literally means to re-examine a person for their good points. Given that people except the Buddha are made up of a mixture of both good and bad, a special effort needs to be made to look for the good points in people. Apart from noticing these good points, part of respect is to praise them for these good points and use them as a good example to model ourselves upon. The fourth and last component is the concern for the object of respect, or karukara, which refers to an attitude of concern for the well-being of the person who is worthy of respect and recollection of the good deeds and virtues of that person. So, in conclusion, a complete act of paying respect will have all four components: a token of respect, a gesture of respect, an attitude of respect, and concern for the object of respect. To look at the issue of expressing respect from a different perspective, if the worthy are not respected and celebrated, they will not live up to their name and may become undisciplined. In many cases, for Buddhist monks who are not treated with respect, they may become less motivated to cherish their congregation, meaning that the congregation start to lose their sense of responsibility for their own human dignity, turning their back on the 5 precepts. The monkhood will be unable to attract those of high caliber into its ranks, further undermining the faith of the lay congregation until eventually the whole religion will end up on the rocks, because transcendental attainment becomes increasingly inaccessible to monks and lay people alike. All become increasingly entrenched in false view, with no accurate knowledge of the Dhamma teachings. Lack of respect will deteriorate into slander of the clergy and monks, leading to a loss of financial support for clergy and monks. Further down the line, there will be desecration of religious property and establishments and embezzlement of religious donations. Some people claim to have a lost interest in doing good deeds because they see so many examples of hypocrisy in the clergy. When such attitudes abound, even the clergy who are well behaved become unable to pass on their knowledge to others because the public are not interested to listen to the clergy anymore. All they want are the material trappings of spirituality, such as holy water and amulets, instead of thinking to transform themselves spiritually for the better. Since religions such as Buddhism can only survive through the voluntary support of the congregation, Eventually, there will be no one left to perpetuate the religion, leaving the congregation with no one to turn to for spiritual guidance, leaving people mired in superstition or animism. As I don't want to end on a depressing note, let me finish with the story of a woman whose life was transformed by an act of paying respect to those worthy of respect. The story takes place 2,500 years ago at a time the Buddha had just recently passed away into parinirvana. After the Buddha's funeral, the newly reformed King Ajasatru, who you will remember from the Devadatta story in the previous blessing, enshrined the relics of the Buddha in a pagoda, and when the ceremony was over, there was a festival to celebrate the completion of the pagoda. At that time, there was a woman who was pitifully poor, but whose strong faith in the Buddha had not diminished since the time when he had been alive. This woman wanted to join in the celebration by honoring the pagoda with flowers. The woman wasn't discerning enough to buy beautiful flowers like the rest of the people. She went and collected 4 gourds from the edge of the forest, golden yellow in color. In fact, the woman became known as Kosataki because she is named after the type of gourds that she found. There are many species of gourd. Some can be eaten, some are inedible, and some have to be thrown away. But I diverge. The type of gourd that Kosataki found were priceless because no one would pay good money for them. She picked 4 of these gourds and set off in the direction of the pagoda with the full intention to offer them in homage to the Buddha. But she was in such a rush that she didn't look where she was going, so fixed was her mind on making the offerings at the pagoda. In her path were a cow and a calf. The cow saw the determination of the woman and thought she meant to harm her calf. So the cow went on the attack and gored the woman to death before she could even reach the pagoda. Although Kosataki never made it to the pagoda, her mind had such a determination to accomplish her good deed that this was the last thing on her mind as she died. And after death, she was reborn immediately as an angel in the 2nd level of heaven. Her clothes became immediately refined as angelic raiment in the same golden color as the gourd, and the angelic mansion that arose as the result of her merit was also the color of the gourd. Indra, the king of heaven, noticed the new arrival in heaven and asked what merit she had performed to cause the arising of a golden-colored mansion. The angel smiled shyly and replied that she had only done something very insignificant, just taking 4 humble gourds to pay respect to the pagoda containing the relics of the Buddha, but she had been gored to death by a cow on the way and regretted not having reached her goal. Otherwise, the golden color of her raiment and the mansion would surely have been even more striking than this. On hearing this, Indra proclaimed, paying respect to the Buddha with a mind of faith, even though the Buddha has already passed away, in no way diminishes the fruits of the good karma. Whether the Buddha is alive or passed away gives fruits of merits equally. For this reason, even though now is a time that the Buddha has already passed away, it should in no way diminish the advice about the transformative effect on our future of paying respect to the Buddha. And I hope this story helps to illustrate that the bandwidth taken up in our hearts and minds by the wholesome exemplars towards whom we express respect, or whom we have as the heroes in our hearts, whether they be the Buddha or wise ones amongst the ranks of monks, monarchs, teachers, elders, and betters, will help us to turn our back on any remaining unwholesomeness in our past, paving the way towards the acquisition of new good habits as we move on to the 2nd group of blessings next time round. So this session I have introduced blessing number 3, paying respect to those worthy of respect. For my next live session online, which will, fingers crossed, be a week on Sunday morning, I'll move on to the 4th blessing on the subject of Buddhist Feng Shui, which explains the important influence of an amenable environment on our journey of spiritual cultivation. So for good measure, I would like to remind viewers, you can email your questions about meditation or what you've heard in the lecture to the email address as you can see spelled out on the slide. And I'll do my best to answer these on my next session. In the meantime, I try to stay healthy, avoid recklessness or complacency in the face of the virus, maintain a positive mood, speak only positive words, forgive others, extend good wishes to others, and meditate daily. Hopefully, as a result of today's session, you will be equipped to recognize those worthy of respect and know how to express genuine respect for them. So for today, this is me, Phra Nicholas Thanissaro, signing off for this session. So long, folks, and